Hey everyone, welcome to the Saturday Night Cenobites. I'm the host, Sareth Nay, and what I usually do with the Saturday Night Cenobites is raise funds for our favorite theaters, like the Sunray Cinema in Jacksonville and the Corazon Cinema and Cafe. And also, I try to raise funds for the filmmakers that I interview. For example, this is Joe, and his Cash App is running on the bottom, and how you can donate to the Corazon and the Sunray is on the bottom of our YouTube screen there. So while you can join in on the conversation by asking questions in the comment section or the live chat. We'll be there for you. So Joe, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me on, Sarah. This is a neat
Anytime.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. It's totally new in form of journalism for me too, so it's pretty wild. And
No, yeah, it's fun. I do my own interview show. This is my first time being interviewed, especially live. Well, I've been interviewed before, but this is my first time doing a live virtual interview. So this is really exciting for me too.
oh, heck yeah. So it says in your bio that you were born in Yokosuka, Japan. Am I
Yeah.
pronouncing that right?
I call it Yokosuka. Most of us, yeah,
Ah,
Yokosuka,
indeed.
Japan. So my dad he was in the Navy. He just retired recently, and we were stationed in Japan. So yeah.
Awesome. And you're a producer and director out of Jacksonville. And what got you into
Yes.
producing and directing?
So yeah, my big start came with last year's 48-hour film festival. Actually, I mean, I've always been a storyteller at heart, but I had never really done any filmmaking, never had real education or experience in filmmaking. But then I heard about this festival where you have a challenge where within 48 hours you're given some elements, and then everybody has the same elements since they all start from scratch, and you have to make something in 2 days. And I thought that was really exciting, and so I joined that, and that's how I got started.
Indeed. And you've worked on some films like After the Fall and Blue Balls.
Yeah.
What are those? What are your favorite production notes from those two films?
Um, I would say, yeah, both of those are really fun films. Probably, if we could back it up a little bit, the reason why I got into those films was from the 48. Um, I when I finished doing my 48-hour film project, or actually when I went in to do the 48-hour film project, I had no crew, I had no cast, I had no car, I didn't even have a computer or a camera. But I wanted to do filmmaking, and I wanted to tell my story, and then so I wanted to just use whatever I had available to me to do it. And I ended up doing an animation, a two-dimensional animation using my phone, and it got really great feedback, and people loved just how simple it was and how it was just based on the story and the writing. I had to have really strong comedic writing um, because I couldn't really do too much in animation in 48 hours. And then after it was screened, I had a standing ovation, and there was a filmmaker Q&A, and that was the first time that I really felt accepted as a storyteller. And then because I had that standing ovation and that people were just cheering me on after they heard my story of how I wanted to tell my story, but all I had was my passion and the desire to tell a story. And people just connected with that really well, and I just felt so a part of something bigger than me. And so I promised myself starting that day that for the next year I would help as many filmmakers in Jacksonville make their dreams come true and bring their projects to life. And so for the last year, I from the middle of last May until the middle of this May, um, I've been trying to help as many of those 48-hour teams or as many of those filmmakers on their projects. And so I started off as a PA. Like people told me that the best way that you could learn filmmaking is to get on a set. So I would get on all these sets, and I would ask them, like, hey, do you need anybody? Like, I'll help however you need. You can use me as a PA or whatever you need me for. and I started to get all these productions in a really small part that I would connect with people, and they would just feel my passion. And I would write these nice posts about visiting their set and everything I learned about filmmaking on that set and all the connections I've made. And people really just gravitated towards that. I started adding people on Facebook, and they would read all my stories, and it kind of became a movement where people saw like really like with just the passion and the desire to tell stories, you could do a lot. So going back to your question, after the fall and Blue Balls, like I'm involved in so many productions, but Blue Balls was really funny. It was a comedy, and what really brought the script to life was the improv of all of the comedic actors. So it's a very like kind of dodgeball-esque, like a almost slapstick style comedy, and really goofy. Sorry, you could probably hear my kids in the background, but like what brought it to life and what gave it just this energy and just made it so funny is that people brought their acting and their improv and the movements and the motions and the little innuendos and the things that make each of the actors them. All of those things just brought it to the next level. So that was Blue Balls. And for After the Fall, that is that's a feature production head on by Matthew Maniac. He is very organized, very well put together, very great production. It has, they went through a very rigorous like selection process to bring some of the best out of Jacksonville, and they have put together a really remarkable crew and cast, and some of the best in town. So I'm on as a producer, as well as I have a small supporting role at the end of the film. So and Blue Balls, I'm also one of the actors. So yeah, I would say my favorite thing in Blue Balls is all of the improv and seeing what even, through the process, the actors bring to the table. And then for After the Fall, I love the organization because it's a well-oiled, like a finely tuned machine. Even through this COVID experience, everything had to be put on pause. But I saw our main executive producer, he kept us updated. That's Matthew Maniac. He kept track of when things were going into phase 2 and when we could reopen, and now we have dates to go back into it. Like, it's really a machine. After the Fall, that group, and I really like that. Yeah. Sorry, that was a lot, but yeah.
You're fine. And so you also do the Jack's Film Update, and what got you involved with the Jack's Film Update?
Yeah, so when I started to get involved in all these projects, like when you go in at like kind of at the bottom of the totem pole, and you're mostly coming in just for the production days or whatever, you can get involved in a lot of projects. And so I was getting involved in like almost, I don't want to say every project, but I was getting involved in a lot of things. In the last year, I have 25 completed projects that I worked on, and then we have 29 more that we're we're still in production or we're in post. Some of them were actually still in pre-production, but we've done a lot. And so I've come to kind of connect with a lot of different production teams, a lot of different directors and producers, and we all talk about what's going on, what kind of film events or what kind of film projects are happening in town. What's happening right now? What's starting this week? What's showing this week? What is wrapping this week? So it was just kind of that same conversation where everybody had small bits and pieces, but nobody had the biggest picture, and everybody wanted to know. Everybody wanted an update on what was happening in Jacksonville film. So because of that, and because I got all these bits and pieces from all these different production groups, I was able to put that together and reach out to the Jacksonville film community to show them all of the projects, or at least all the ones that came to me and were on the show for Jack's Film Update.
Indeed. It looked like you worked in a lot of the departments, like costume and wardrobe
Yeah,
for that, and what else? There's like the script and continuity department,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
were.
There were yeah in Jacksonville Update. I mainly every few episodes I might have somebody helping with the camera, and someone might help operate the camera if I don't have it on a tripod, or if I'm not. A lot of times it started off as a vlog style show, because what would happen would be like, and I guess part of the novelty of the show is that it is, I said it was from the stage or the set or from the theater. You get to hear and you get backstage access on what's happening in Jacksonville film. So most of the shots are from, you're on set, like in between takes, like a hot set, or we are in a theater right after a premiere, or we are at a film festival between showings. Like it is Jack's Film Update. There's a lot of that high octane, like really high adrenaline, high energy, like anticipation for these events and things that are happening, because the actors are acting, and they're just taking a breath. And while they're taking a breath, I'll do a quick interview. Hey, can we talk about the other projects that you're on, or this project that we're working on right now? Um, so yeah, that's so sometimes we would have somebody holding a camera, and I also had the host for most of the episodes was my good actor friend Bobby Bickle. Shout out to him. Um, but pretty much most of the rest, like I was the writer, I was the director, I was the producer, and I made sure I wore all the hats for that show, just to keep it running and make sure that the city stayed updated, and whoever wanted to see what was happening in Jacksonville could be updated.
Indeed. And you worked in the camera and electrical department for Preyed Upon. Like, what was the story behind that short?
Yeah. So yeah, that was a great challenge. That was part of Preyed Upon was originally created for the last year's Machete Chronicles, which was a contest. Basically, it's some people also call it Jacksonville Horror Film Festival. It's basically a contest that's put on every year by Sid Thompson and Jimbo Moon, and they the theme this last year, and it was their first one, was Machete Chronicles, slasher film. You had to do an 80s style slasher film. So that kind of ties into one of my other credits. But for Preyed Upon, I was directing and producing my own film, but then I was good friends with a lot of people in the crew for Preyed Upon. I believe it's a Man Shorts group. I think Justin Mann was directing, and I want to say that Jaron was the producer. I want to say they all wear different hats. Sometimes one's one and one's the other, but it was that group, and I wanted to help them. Or yeah, they reached out to me to see how I could help, and it turns out they didn't have they needed a behind the scenes photographer. So I just went around with a camera on their main filming day, and I was there for a good 13 hours, I think, or yeah, about 13 hours, just shooting behind the scenes, getting all the action. That was a lot of fun. That was that was a slasher film. Basically, there was a slasher that took out these people in a house. So that was a lot of fun to do. It's a fun group to hang out with. They're really a chill group, but they're also very professional. They all have really great artistic eyes. I love working with them when I can.
Indeed. It's always fun to work with folks like that, and especially working on horror flicks.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then
So
go ahead.
on that same vein, that's a good segue to one of my biggest projects of 2019 was Shine On. I don't know if you were getting to that, but that was happening. I think I finished shooting that, I think, the week before I did behind the scenes photography for Preyed Upon. But yeah, Shine On was part of that same contest, the Machete Chronicles, where we had this window of time to make a short film. I want to say that all of pre-production was 3 weeks, and we shot everything. Yeah, we shot it. Our main shooting day was 1 day, and then not everybody could make it to a second day. So we unfortunately had a very long shooting day, where at the end it was just the main team, directors. I was co-directing with Chase Capo, very great guy. He's awesome. So Chase Capo, and then we had our director of photography was there, and our main gaffer, and the location host, which he lived at the location, and then our lead actress. We stayed for a very long time. I don't know if it was 15 hours or 16 by the time that we wrapped all of the leads parts. So that was great. And then we worked on Shine On. It was wonderful. Chase Capo, like, hats off to him. When he came on the project, and he told me that he grew up on Stanley Kubrick, and he could really envision the whole film. I told him he could be my co-director, because I really trusted his vision, and he really brought it to the next level. And Shine On has won several awards. At the Machete Chronicles, we got Best Villain was Rose Sanchez. The Best Lead, we had a nomination for Jazz Abramowitz, and the winner went to our lead, Grace Bryan. So she got Best Lead, and then we also got Best Film of 2019, which was a huge success and a huge thing, especially for being a first-time first year of directing and my first major production. So me and Chase Capo, we got that Best Film under our belt, so that was a lot of fun too. And now it's circling throughout the festival circuit. We've had articles written about it. We've received multiple certifications from Europe and from Los Angeles for the film, and we are getting screened in a lot of places. So Shine On was really one of the highlights of 2019. It was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun.
Indeed, and you worked in animation too, and for the house. What's the shorts about the story behind that short?
Yeah. So yeah, I started, like I said, with the 48. I did very simple 2-dimensional animation. One of the first people that reached out to me after, well, a lot of people reached out to me, but one of the first people who wanted me to work on their films was Royce Freeman. So shout out to Royce. A lot of people in town know who Royce is, and he wanted me to get involved and help with graphic design and designing titles for multiple of his films. So I've helped him on The House, I believe was the first one that we did together. It is basically, it's The Office. The Office, the American version of The Office, but with animals inside of a house. So that was a nice comedy. They did that for the LOL, and it's screened there. So it was nice to see my graphic and my animation up there. So that was a lot of fun. And then also with, and it was a funny short. Like, not being biased at all, I really enjoyed that one. And then I helped Royce as well do graphics for. I helped him on a couple projects that the Film Bar did. One of them was about another one about a cat and a dog. I forget the title of that, but we made a silent film together. I made the title cards for the silent film, and then I also helped him make a poster for a longer production called Cliché that he did with Sid Thompson. That's another horror film, slasher as well. And yeah, so I've done some Oh yeah, and then I worked on with Royce. One of the last things that I did was he did a project with Gabby V. Um, this show, a web show, I believe. They're keeping it as a web show. Of Gabby V is a 16-year-old girl going into the workforce and trying out different jobs. So she's kind of going outside of the box and trying like working with the zoo and some other places. And so kind of like outside, not your typical like grocery store or hamburger flipping, but trying other things around Jacksonville that are available. And so kind of an interview style kind of work flow like docu series. So I did some animation, some title animation, and some um, green screen work for that as well. So those were some nice projects that I helped with the graphics. But that after I did those four, and then my original animation, I haven't done too much graphic design because I've been focusing more on especially after I directed and produced Shine On, I've been more into producing, and I've kind of stopped with graphics and animation because that's just really time consuming, and you can't really help as many different production teams if I'm focusing just on designing one graphic or one title or animating something. So, yeah.
Indeed, I've seen some of those animations at the Sunray when we all gathered for that free showing of the Jacksonville Showcase, and that was
Oh,
pretty neat.
yeah, this last one in March.
Hmm. Yep.
Oh
That,
yeah, so that was that was organized by me, and I did the this last year I created what's called Jacksonville Animation Initiative, and what I did was for about 6 months I collected animations from as many people as I could find. There were a lot more people who have done animations, but maybe weren't ready to show them, but I tried to sit down with as many animators as I could back when we could still meet in person, and over 6 months just try to collect as many animations as we could find, and set a nice program where people could see, I guess, the current state of Jacksonville animation. Um, when I first came out with that, when I did that 48, I believe that was the first ever Jacksonville 48-hour film project. Well, it was the first ever solo team, but it was also the first ever animation that someone's tried to do an animation in 48 hours as part of that contest. But then I found from doing that, people started to know me as the animation guy. And people who have done animation or have animations on their laptops or computers, they have come to me and told me, kind of shared their love for animation with me. But then with talking with all these animators, we found that there was no place to really showcase local animation. And so that's why I started the initiative, because I wanted to give a place where people can, like, kind of give people a reason to animate. Like, there's no festival, there's no contest, there's no challenge for people to use their voiceover talents or to use their animation talents to do stop motion, to do 3D, to do 2D, have flip books or any of that. Like, there's not a lot of storyboarding or any kind of visual art. I mean, yeah, it's a visual art, but using animation. So so I started that. For several months we had an animator spotlight where we would do a spotlight on different animators and different voice actors. And then we had this last March, one of the last things they did at Sunray with Film Bar was we combined with the Film Bar's silent one-shot project, and then we had that animation night screening. So that was a nice, successful night, and I was glad that a lot of people came out to that and were able to enjoy those animations.
Indeed, I agree. And going back to your production assistant days, there's some that are in production, post production, and are currently filming, like The Lurking Fear and The Last Pirate. What are your
Yeah.
favorite stories from those sets?
Yeah. So, lurking fear. That's kind of a hard topic for local film, but it's an important part of film history, local film history. Um, it was. I don't know, I'm trying to find like ways to put it in a nice way, but basically, something happened with the budget. Um, the Lurking Fear is a feature film that employed a lot of the top Jacksonville and regional, and even like people from California, New York, really great talent. But we especially employed a lot of the cast and crew was local Jacksonville people, and it was a paying production. Like they have a budget. Um, I'm not a big person to speak for the Lurking Fear. I was at the bottom. I was the production assistant, and it was one of my first looks inside of a big production. Like this was an ongoing thing. We had a set that they rented out, a haunted set. I can't say too much about the location, but that was another horror film. I've been working in a lot of horror, but yeah, I that was one of the first things where when people knew I wanted to learn more about film, they said, "Hey, this is a big production. If you can get into it, that'd be great." I said, I don't know what I can offer to it. Like I had just started doing film, um, but they accepted me as a production assistant, and I learned so much there. So many of my connections and a lot of the crew that I used for Shine On were connections that I made from that set. Some of the biggest ones, the first assistant director of uh, The Lurking Fear was Ithael Israel, and he's a great guy. He's a powerhouse. When I worked with him, like he was one of those people. Like so many people were stressed out. Like it's a very high intensity production. We're trying to stay on track. Everyone's doing the best they can. But Ithael, he's really one of those people. He's first assistant director. I mean, he does everything else too. He's an actor. He's a director. But there he was, first assistant director, and he just made everybody feel human. He knew that there's life outside of this production. I will treat you like a person. You will be valued, and that was something huge for me in my first production, like a large scale production. I don't know how many people were there, 30 or 40, maybe 50 people. I didn't really count everybody, but I was just kind of there to assist everybody. Um, I was what is his name? One of our biggest like A-list actors. Uh, he was huge in the 80s and 90s. What was his name? Um, ooh, I should know his name, but I was his assistant for like 2 days. Um, so I would like go to his trailer or wait outside his trailer with a walkie and for hours until he was needed on set. And then when he would get to set, he would send me back to get his script from inside of his trailer, his air conditioned, nice trailer, only trailer on set. But he was. I felt like he was treated very nicely there. But yeah, I don't want to spill too much about that. But it was nice to work as an assistant for an A-list actor, um, and then kind of work closely with somebody of that caliber he's worked on in the Goonies. He was in License to Kill, 007, James Bond. Um, he was in a lot of big stuff in the day. He was the bad guy. I don't know. I forget his name. People watching this might remember, and I could probably comment later or something, but it's slipping my mind right now. He's from New York. He had long hair for The Thing, but in most of his films and his earlier days, I think it was shorter hair. But he's like the bad guy. So that was fun.
Sweet. So,
and sorry, you asked about the Last Pirate. Yeah. So with The Last Pirate, sorry, I just remembered that was the second part of your question. Yeah, The Last Pirate. So, so I saw some behind the scenes stuff on like Facebook, right? So I like at the time I was trying to get involved in as many productions as I could, like however I can, like if you need me as PA, like whatever you need me to do. I saw this behind the scenes for The Last Pirate, and it was a pirate film, and like they're very like detail oriented, and it just looks amazing, like the behind the scenes stuff. And then I saw um, their first trailer that they put out at the LOL. They played in the beginning of the Laugh Out Loud Love Our Locals Film Festival, and I was like, this video quality is amazing. And it turns out that it was being the director of photography is Will Cook, and he's another someone who had a huge role in the last 48-hour film project. And so I really wanted to work with him and other people that were involved with that. So I reached out to as many people as I could, like everybody I knew that was on it, because it was a huge production, a huge team. And eventually, like the first people I reached out to were saying, "Oh, there's a lot of PAs. We're pretty much a full crew. I don't know if we have space for you." But then I started talking to some of the producers, and then I got in touch with Will Cook. I was like, "Hey, man, I love your work. Whatever you do, like I'll volunteer. I really just want to help you however I can." And I think he just liked something about my attitude and my passion, and he wanted me to help on as his assistant and help him in the camera crew. Um, but I eventually I did kind of a lot of stuff. I would carry stuff. I would be sound for a day. I I did a lot of my interviews for Jack's Film Update on that set. Um, there was a lot of rainy days um, where just kind of carrying a lot of equipment, kind of keeping people's morale up, walking around and seeing how people are doing, if they need a water bottle or anything. Just kind of keeping people in a good mood. And then I also connected them with some publicity. I got them on the cover. I helped get them connected with a writer for a local newspaper that got them on the cover of North Jack's um, North Jack's Monthly, I think it's called. And so that was really cool. Like I'm right in the center of the picture on that cover. Um, so that was a lot of fun too. But that's such a wonderful production. Like the quality, like producers cannot stress enough about how they really focus on the quality of that film. And the video quality is amazing. I love Will's work. And of course, the other Christian Pavlik, he's the main producer, and he's the director and writer, the everything of that film. He's the backbone of that production. And then also we can't forget to mention AJ Medina. He's another producer, and he's the lead, and he does some excellent, like Will, the director of photography, he was also the choreographer. So they had some fight scenes and excellently choreographed sword fighting. As Will, he's very experienced in fencing, so he choreographed the fight scene. And AJ and Garth did a lot of the fight scenes, and that was a lot of fun. Like there's a lot of adventure, there's a lot of comedy, there's a lot of action. So it was cool to be in the middle of that. And whether I'm holding a reflector to get light in somebody's face, or I'm getting water bottles to people, or whatever I had to do, just keep everybody in a good mood and get them publicized and out there in front of the world, because that's just such a quality film. And I'm really excited they're wrapping up post-production, and they also got a lot of copies of the newspaper. They're getting that to us. Really excited to put that on my wall in my office of just one of the productions that I helped work on. So those were two really fun projects.
Pretty sweet. And so you've also worked in the sound department, like for like the Angry Asian Man as a boom operator. What
Yeah,
were those days like?
that's funny you mentioned that one, because sometimes I forget. Because when we think about my first year of filmmaking here in Jacksonville, it doesn't include that one, and that's a very, very far, like long ago. So I went to school. I went to high school in California. I was in Riverside County, so just south of LA, and I um, had always, well, I attended a film festival, and so this is a fun story. I attended a film festival just because it sounded exciting. Like I wasn't a filmmaker yet or anything. I didn't have the film in it. I just I heard there was a in LA. I think it was in Huntington Beach Film Festival, and I attended there. And then I wanted to kind of just learn as much as I could, and I ended up on a panel of filmmakers, like film producers and directors. And I was the only one that wasn't a filmmaker, so it was kind of funny. But they kind of all wanted to help mentor me and tell me kind of different things, like, oh, if you want to get into filming, try this and try this, do this genre. This will make you so this will break you into the business. Um, but I had nothing to do with film. I just was I'd always watched films, um, but I don't really remember how I ended up on that panel. I was just the young guy, and then they told me, hey, if you really want to get into this, and you can, it's nice to see a young guy. I was 18. It was nice for them to see a young guy want to go to film festivals and be involved in independent film. And so they said, yeah, look on Craigslist. However you can get onto a crew, find your way onto a crew. Whether you need a volunteer, you just get on a set. So similar advice to what I'm receiving like these days like a year ago when I wanted to get into film. So, so I looked on Craigslist and there was an ad for they're looking for a crew, no experience necessary, because a lot of teams in LA, they want experience. So, but this was an LA crew that said no experience necessary. We just want to make do a 1 day shoot, get something together, and just make a film happen in 1 day. So we all met on a Saturday really early, and we shot. And they were asking me what I can offer to the crew, and I said, hey, no experience necessary. I am the no experience, so wherever you need me. They're like, well, you can hold this boom. So I held the boom mic the whole day, and so that was actually, I sometimes forget about that experience because I came into last year saying that I have no experience in film, but that was actually just one of those things I wanted to try for fun. But I learned a lot that day, and it really opened my eyes to filmmaking. And ever since then, that was in 2009, I just always had that part of me where I would follow these people on IMDb, all of the people who were there, and see them progress and go further in their careers, because we were all just starting at that time. And then I've seen some of them become really established actors or producers or whatever in LA. And then I was the person who moved away from LA and just did nothing more with film. And I always wanted to go back. And I think that was part of the reason why I decided to go back this last year. It's because there's always that part of me that was like, man, these people are all progressing in film. They're telling their stories how they can. And I need to do that too. So yeah, sorry, that was that was my story there.
Yeah,
10-year-old story.
that's awesome. I'm glad you're still pursuing film and stuff like that, and now you're making your mark in Jacksonville. So you brought that knowledge all the way to the East Coast. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And you also worked. You're like the John Carpenter. You do everything. Like you're like the composer for like Super Academy too. What
Yeah.
was that like?
Yeah, no, it's fun. So I've been writing music. I've been trying to do um, I've been working with producers to get a solo album, because I've been trying to do music as well. Um, and so I've been working on these tracks, and I've been almost like in a writer's block, but I have all of these amazing tracks that I've been wanting to use as backtracks that I just need to write lyrics to. So when I started to make some of these other films, like Super Academy and some of the other ones, I would use the music that I was supposed to write lyrics to. It's all instrumental stuff, but really great sounding music. and I would just put that to some of my films. And so it worked great as a score. I would just find what fits well with the mood of what we're doing, and use some of my music I've already written, and have that as my score. So it's a little different than the way that some of my other productions get scored, where the composer would watch the film and then create something for that. What I've been doing is I have some of my pre-written stuff, and then I just kind of plug it where it fits. And maybe it changes the tone of a scene, so then I have to edit it differently. But if I'm editing something, it's really easy for me to find some of my own personal music to be the score for that film. And then I also did music so I did that for a few of my projects, but then also for Jack's Film Update, I didn't have an intro, and then one of our film bar host, Basil, he told me, your show would be a lot more interesting if you had a nice, catchy intro music. So you should create some kind of intro, maybe with some title animation. So then every Jack's Film Update episode, it has that same animation in the beginning, simple 2D animation, the same style that I did my first 48 in. And then I was trying to think of how could I make Jack's Film Update kind of catchy, have some kind of catchy intro music. So I just thought of the word Jack's Film Update, and I thought it'd be cool if somebody was like yelling it out. It's kind of like old style, like intro. And then I just beatboxed, and just made a simple beatbox with me singing, and nice composition. So if you want a little piece, I could beatbox for you, that intro.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Why not?
So Jack's Film Update starts like this: bound, 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 diggy, diggy, bound, 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 diggy, diggy, bound, 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 diggy, diggy, bound, bound. Jack's Film Update. So it does that twice, and then I was about to do the beatbox with the humming and scatting, but then I realized that I did that on two different tracks and put that together, but and I couldn't do it at the same time. So, but that's kind of how it sounds, and it's kind of a higher energy. I had that tune come to my head where I was like driving and like just thinking about Jack's Film Update, and that nice like kind of a bass guitar kind of feel. Bound, 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 diggy, diggy, bound, 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 diggy, diggy, bound, 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 diggy, diggy, bound, bound, bound. Jack's Film Update. It just it's a really good, like, it shows you the organic feeling of Jack's Film Update, but it also gets you kind of piped up, like, oh, something awesome is going to happen here. And it's just, I don't know, it's a real catchy tune. It's a lot of fun. It's crazy, like we've been talking about all these projects, and crazy to think that it was just a year from that first, it's been 10 years from being a boom operator in LA. And then 10 years later, I decided I want to make films for myself. And then after I did that, I decided I want to help the community and help them however I can. After I produced Shine On, I wanted to help other people produce their films. And when we have passion projects, the way that we reward our people who volunteer their time, like somewhere where we can't afford to pay them, if we're just volunteering just to have a fun project or a fun challenge thing, is we'll give them credit and crafty. So we'll give them IMDb credits, and we'll provide them with some snacks, some food, some drinks, Gatorades, sodas, like whatever. So then after Shine On, I offered basically an open invitation, like, if you need me to help out with credits or crafty, I'll put everybody into IMDb for you. I'll put the project on. I'll update the posters. I'll do everything that you need me to do online to make sure everybody is properly credited. And then I also helped with feeding a lot of people. I lost track of how many meals that were provided, but it's somewhere over 2,000 in the last year, about 2,400. And then we kind of slowed down in March when people stopped producing and stopped eating together. But it's been great because like, that's what we work for, is we work for the experience, but like, you don't want people to stay on set for 12 hours without feeding them. So if people can't afford to feed them, or if, it's tight, I'll help them out. I've been helping them out, and on several productions helping do that. I've paid for many props, and yeah, it's been really neat to see some of these projects that kind of were on. They just needed a little bit of extra push. Seeing how far that they've come, just with that extra, being able to feed their cast and crew, being able to have props to bring them to the next level, and maybe some producers have never used IMDb, but I can help them get all the credits in. So that's been a lot of fun.
Speaking of posters, you worked on the poster for Cliche.
Yeah.
What was like the inspiration behind that artwork?
Yeah. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, Royce has a cool vision, and it's cool to work to make an art when somebody has like a precise vision that they want. Like The Office, he really wanted a good like The Office vibe. So or The House is what we made. So I did The Office title graphic based off of, or I made The House title graphic based off of The Office, and then so he really wanted Cliche to have inspiration from Friday the 13th. So he showed me a poster, and then he told me he wanted to kind of recreate with a similar feel, the similar look, but he wanted it to be a hit list. Um, the slasher has a hit list of different cliche people, kind of like Breakfast Club style, virgin, stoner, yeah, different nerd, jock, all these people on this list, nameless people, just their cliche. But he wanted it in the style to look just like Friday the 13th. So that was a lot of fun.
Sweet.
Excuse me. Drink some water.
Indeed. So you've been the cinematographer for like Jack's Film Update and the Waiting Room back in 2019. What are your favorite cinematographer stories from those?
Yeah, cinematography stories. I don't know. It's a lot of fun. I try to learn as much as I can. Like as per where like directors of photography go. Like I don't consider myself on the same level of like other local great people like Adam Madrid or Jaren or like there's so many people. Jay Palmer, Zane Hall. Like there's this long list of really wonderful local people who know cameras. So it's really hard for me to consider myself a cinematographer like in the same bracket or in the same division of these people. But for me, like I like to tell stories, and I want to tell stories the way that any way that I can, and I can't always afford to have like a really great cinematographer with their finest equipment come out and film all the fine pieces. So like a lot of what I've done where I've been the cinematographer is I have a iPhone 11 Pro Max. It's one of the greatest camera phone qualities. Shoots 4K, and there's 3 cameras on the back. It's it's 4K, and I try to watch videos online, tutorials to just try to learn as much as I can about cinematography, trying to tell a story through a camera. But like for me, every time I'm credited as cinematographer, it's because I'm trying to do a simple story and just tell it how I can with whatever I have available. So, yeah.
Indeed, and also did like the voice for the Waiting Room, and you also
Yeah.
mentioned what was being a voiceover like the experience. You also did it for the animation and for your other projects too, but
Yeah. Voiceover is way fun. I've done a few projects where I I would say that's probably one of my strengths. Honestly, is And even some of the projects I've done some private commission projects outside, where I would have it would kind of be documentary style footage, introductions for people, where they tell their stories, and then I'll go from the interview and I'll go into B-roll footage, where they're doing a voiceover in the background, because I love a good voiceover. I love how crisp and clean. Also, like, people say that I have a really nice voice, but I love how crisp and clean one clean and clear voiceover can be over a video. Like a lot of times, some people in editing, they'll use the score as almost a crutch because of all of the audio is from different places, and to make it all kind of fit together, they'll put the score. But sometimes with the perfect voiceover, you don't need a score, just because of how clear it's a one take voiceover. Like I like writing long monologues to go over a complete film, and then I'll have the voiceover be in one take. And then for me personally, like The Waiting Room, that was something that I wrote and directed myself, and that's where, like, I got attention from sound people. They're like, "This is a sound driven film," and then they were even more impressed when I told them that voiceover was done in one take. Like, for me, it's just great. It's great to I love voiceovers, because for me, it's all about storytelling. And what's the classic way to tell a story is from your mouth. So I love doing voiceovers, and I love just captivating people with my voice, because there's like rhetorical ways to get people's attention, and to get people to feel different emotions, that you could just do, just through the power of your voice. So I love voiceovers.
Indeed. And you mentioned earlier that you were an actor in Blue Balls, and you also starred in After the Fall and Corn Quit, and Joe's Stuck at Home, more physically, mentally, and socially distant. Uh, Nowhere Left to Run and Cowford Bites. What were
Yes.
all those stories behind those acting chops there?
Oh man, we got stories for days, man. You know, I love telling stories, and so I think we already covered Blue Balls and After the Fall. One of my first, like, outside of my own productions. Well, yeah, some of these are my own productions, but for the first time I acted in something else that somebody else wrote, and somebody else directed, somebody else produced, there was another cinematographer. That was Cowford Bites, and that was a huge deal. I was volunteering to help on these different productions, and I said, "Hey, however you can use me, I'll be whatever you need me to be." And I volunteered as a PA, but I said I could do anything that you need me to do. So the lead in that called out within hours before before shooting. So then the producer director reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you willing to read for this part?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll help you however I can." So that was really crazy, because I had not spent any time in front of a camera. I mean, I've done some interviews. Like, I've been on an interview show for WJCT called Hometown. One segment was about me, but as an actor, like, doing something, like telling a story, also like memorizing a script, like, there was so much that I had to learn. I was doing so much research in these hours of, like, what do I need to know as an actor? Like, all these basic, like, from the beginning. And I was just so full of adrenaline. I was, and then there was a part where I had to jump into a pool. So I was like, oh, my body, like, I need to scrub myself. I got like the kitchen sponge, and I was using the hard side to, like, scrub my skin, especially my stomach and all up here, just to like, you know, be the best that I can for the camera. I was just like, need to get myself as red as I can. and then I need to memorize this complete script from the beginning to end because I'm the lead. So I recorded myself on this phone right here. I recorded myself um, saying all the lines and then saying half the lines and then just saying other people's lines except for mine. And I memorized the whole thing. I just did it over and over, the whole film, the whole screenplay, until I had it all memorized. And I got there, I had it memorized, I was clean, I had my wardrobe. It was a really silly film, but for me, it was a really big deal because it was something where I just like really rose to the occasion and really, really did my best. I got there and I knew the script better than the writer did. And they were asking, the director was asking, what's the next line for this person? I said, I would know. I was like, don't waste your time looking through. I mean, you can still look through, but let me just tell you, I know his next line is this, because they had rewritten the script like the day before. A lot of the script, like 80% of the script, and then I had it all memorized because I memorized it all a few hours before we shot. Yeah, and so I had a lot of fun just in a lot of these films, just kind of reaching in myself, and I've been taking some acting classes and some private coaching and sitting down across from people, having them show me different emotions, the emotional wheel, practicing Meisner, and like part of this last year of trying to connect with people from the 48 is one of the groups that produced a film was Creative Veins, and they worked with Jay Palmer, and he was their cinematographer. So I've been trying to connect with them, and especially like I've been hearing so many great things about Creative Veins, like the owners. They did a lot of training with Rob Mello in Atlanta. Shout out to Creative Veins. I've taken their intro to stand-up comedy, and then I've taken their acting essentials class, and I've attended so many of their smorgasbord, which is their open mics for comedy and for they were doing all performing arts, I believe, and even animation and short films. They screened there. It's a really good time. It's really like a family there at Creative Veins, and the owners and the instructors, they know so much about what they do. They have really it's like I'm getting into a commercial for Creative Veins, unintentionally, but there's just there are so many talented people that came out of the 48 and that I connected through the 48, and I wanted to get involved with as many of them as possible. One of them was a group called Creative Veins, so I've been trying to take as many classes as I can with them. But just like during the last 48, I am a person that is stuck at home. Like not just during this lockdown, but I've always. I mean, I'm a stay-at-home dad. I've been a stay-at-home dad for a couple of years now, and I can't always leave my house. So I try to help films virtually as much as I can, remotely as much as I can. When I come on set, it's very like it's a sacrifice for me, but I do when I have to, and then obviously when I'm acting, I have to be on set. But most of like what I do, like producing and writing and directing, well, directing you have to be on set too, but like producing and writing, I try to do as much from here as I can. So that's why I'm mostly like on IMDb, it has me credited mostly as a producer, and then I also do a lot of voiceover work because that's something you could do virtually and remotely where you don't have to be on set. So yeah, that's that.
Indeed. And you've done like production design for Joe's Stuck at Home and Wrexham Updated, Regeneration, The Waiting Room.
Yeah.
What got you into production designing?
Yeah, that's just another job, another hat where if I don't have a full crew with me, sometimes I just have to um, rearrange everything myself, and like a lot of these films, I just kind of have to wear a lot of hats. Um, so to make the design of the production look the way that I need to, sometimes I have to step in. So it's not my forte, but that's something I have to do sometimes.
Indeed, and you've done some editing work as well for like Super Academy, Joe Stuck at Home, the Jackson Update, and the Waiting Room. What are like the challenges that you've had to face as an editor for those?
I think being an editor is a challenge. Honestly, that's another thing. Like another thing that I wouldn't say is my forte, but it's a very important part of the job. Um, I consider the editor to be the director of post production. I I say that writer, director, and editor, they're the ones that have probably the most power over the story, over telling the story. Um, I mean, obviously, also the director of photography and sound, but really, like in pre-production, I say that the director of pre-production is the writer because the whole story is in their hands, and then once it goes over to the director, like they're the ones who take charge, and then the editor is like the director, the king of post-production. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's especially if you're editing somebody else's work. There's a lot that goes into it. I try to edit a lot of my things. If I don't want to burden another person with my project and editing my project, I'll end up editing my own, and it's a lot of fun. I have to edit a lot. I'm editing a lot, just because I'm always telling new stories. But it's fun, like learning some of the basics. Like, it's just a lot of fun. Like making, I've been doing a lot of virtual editing, or virtual films, editing for virtual films. So it's kind of hard because people are in different places. But that would probably be one of the biggest challenges is try to make people from different places seem like they're in the same room. But some of that comes in having somebody's voice continue over while you have another video playing, just so it seems like they're in the same room. So yeah.
Indeed, and you also do the was the casting director for Joe Stuck at Home and the Jackson Update, Shine On, Regeneration, The Waiting Room. What's it like being the one that says, "Hey, you get to be in the movie and you don't," kind of thing?
Yeah, that's. I mean, I love being. Um, I think just having all the limitations that I have, where I can't always leave my house, and I need things to work a certain way just so that it works with me. So I love being able to control those different aspects. So that's why I put myself in the producer position. I put myself in the director position. But a lot of times that gives me also the opportunity to choose and cast who I want in my films. Um, so for me, it's great to have that control, creative control, because if yeah, if I have my limitations and try to put that on somebody else's production, I feel like I kind of might be more of a hindrance. But when I create my own productions, I can control them and have them be how I want. So I love casting. It's a lot of fun, and I think as part of being a producer is getting to know local actors, local cast and crew. Um, so putting together a crew is a huge part of production, and choosing the right cast um, is integral to bring your stories to life. So when I'm not making a film, I attend film bars. I go to theater shows. I attend screenings so that I can connect with these actors, so that you know they see that I'm supporting them. I am befriending them. I'm connecting with them how I can. When we have time to meet together and congratulate them on their shows, support them in their festivals, congratulate them for their awards, help them how I can. So yeah, I love working with actors and I love casting. It's a lot of fun.
Indeed, and you've also been a writer of Super Academy, Capes and Registration, Please, Joe Stuck at Home, Jack's Film Update, and The Waiting Room. Like, how many drafts did you have to go through, like, with most of those?
Oh,
And what?
so many. But some of these projects are like really like bare bones crews. Um, some of them some of them are just me. Um, Sometimes I'll write something and I'll just do it myself. And so a lot of the drafts I don't even have to write down. I don't have to send them or email them to anybody. But a lot of times the drafts and the redos, they kind of happen in front of the camera. Sometimes I'll be doing the voiceover work, and then I'll be like, that doesn't sound right, and I won't have to write it down. I'll just do it again. Be like, what sounds better? Um, so it's a lot because you record something once, especially in a voiceover. You want it's got to be perfect, especially if I'm going to do a one take for a complete short film, a voiceover. I tend to do a lot of voiceover driven work, where it's driven by the sound, it's driven by the monologue. So it takes a lot of work. It's um, some people monologues and dialogue is their weakness, but for me, that's what I rely on. So it has to be my strength. And I'm writing. I'm doing a big shift now, and writing a documentary. That's a 45-minute longer form documentary, um, really highlighting Asian Americans in Jacksonville in the Southeast United States and our identity, our culture, how we are preserving and sharing our culture. So that's another thing that I'm writing right now. It's been I would say um, out of my experience that this is the biggest project, and this is probably one of the most important projects that I've written. It's not on my IMDb yet. I think we're waiting until it's released before we put the credits up. But we've been working on this project for years. They've been filming it for years. I joined a few months ago and have been really getting into the story of this. And to really get into something so powerful, I have to put my mind like really deep in. I have to um, really understand what it means to be a minority here in America. And as I do that, as I'm writing this and I'm trying to find the right voice for the film, I have to really like change a lot of things within my heart and within my head. And so that's been a really fun journey. Um, it's been a very transformative journey, a lot of transformation, a lot of growth, because to really like write something from the heart, you need to change your heart if you want to tell the right story. So, yeah.
Indeed, and you've been like the seven-time king for as a director, sitting on the director's chair for Super Academy, Capes and Registration, Please, Joe Stuck at Home, Jack's Film Update, Shine On, Regeneration, and The Waiting Room. What was it like to be the director of those?
It's great. Um, yeah, um, it's great to be able to. The director really has the vision and brings the vision to life. So really, it's a huge part of telling the story because you're the one who chooses how the story is delivered, and you're the one who brings that. You're the one with the vision. Um, like you take the script, but it's your vision of the script, and it's very. It requires a lot of responsibility, especially if you are directing like the bigger of a cast, the bigger of a crew. Several of these, some of these projects are very small, and like the Stuck at Home um, was a 48-hour project that I did by myself. The Waiting Room was a 40-hour project that I did by myself, and then the rest were with crews. One of them was about 10, and the other one was about 7. Um, Jack's Film Update is usually just me and then our host, Bobby, and then whoever I'm interviewing. And then Shine On was 30 people and a dog. Um, so it's really great to be able to have that vision. Oh, and with Shine On, I had a co-director as well, so that helped with having such a large crew and somebody taking a huge part of the weight, and sharing that vision together. So yeah, it's directing.
Indeed. And we've come to the last chapter, which is being the producer, and you have 11 credits under your belt for being a producer for the following: The Things We Bloom, After the Fall, Super Academy, Joe Stuck at Home, TBD2, TBC, Call on Me, The Wax That Drips, Jack's Film Update, Shine On, Regeneration, and The Waiting Room. What's it like to have the producer hat on those productions?
Yeah, the producer, that's where I try to help the most. The producer is the one who brings it from the beginning to the end. Um, yeah, you give the green light, and um, I I really enjoy being that person that can provide, the person that gives that platform, the person who takes a project and um, makes it able to be accomplished, who just kind of drives it from the beginning to the end. Um, yeah. So, however I can help, I try to, and that's why I really try to put myself in that position in as many projects as I can, and that's what I've been doing. Um, because when you're the producer, you kind of can form. You could kind of create your environment. You create the environment that you want to be in. You create your resume. You build your IMDb, your credit list, because you're the one who says, "I want to make a project." Who wants to make a project with me? Do you want to direct my project? Do you want to write for me? Um, like I have a great idea, or do you have a great idea? Let's make it happen. Like whatever your idea is, let's bring it. Let's have it roll. I love being that person. One of the huge things is keeping morale up. Something that's come up in this show, this episode is keeping everybody happy, um, providing snacks and meals. That's why I've been keeping track of how many people we've been feeding. It's because it's such an important part of filmmaking. Is we need everybody to be fed. We need them to be happy. And credits. I've been put so many credits on IMDb. It's second home for me now. Putting credits in, but really, it's you're in a way the producer and the director. They're like the parents of the project. It's a family, and you're like the parents. You need to take care of your people. You need to make sure that they do what they need to do, and you need to make sure that we accomplish what we were set out to do. And you're the parents of the film. Uh, Even after the film is complete, your job is not complete. The job of a producer is never over. You need to send it to film festivals, try to get awards for people, really take care of your crew and your cast. Um, but it's really, it's something that takes some heart, I think, especially when you do it in this environment in Jacksonville, where it's mostly passion projects and mostly, just to get people exposure, to get people to act the roles that they want to act, to build that community that we're trying to build. When that's the kind of producer, the kind of films that we're producing, you need a different kind of producer. And so this town has created and brought out heart-driven producers. So yeah.
Indeed. And before we part ways, I wanted to point out that you did a stage play for Antigone, and then in Marietta, California. So you've been all over the stage and behind the camera. What was it being like? What's the difference to you when it comes to like stage plays and film?
Oh yeah. So growing up, I've done a lot of theater, a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I was backstage building, constructing sets for a while as an underclassman in high school, and then, um, but I'd always been singing and dancing, and my the big break in high school was when I was the lead in the musical, in the high school musical. I was Daddy Warbucks and Annie. So that was a huge role. That was huge, like just never acting before and then getting into that. And then I did some other theater things like Antigone. I did, that was our class play for the advanced drama class. And yeah, I remember that year, my junior and senior year, actually, I would I would travel all throughout California, Southern California, and go to all of these high schools, all of these community theaters, and I attended like over 100 high school plays and community theater plays as a child. I was 17 and 18 and probably 16, 17, maybe that region. Just getting in my car, bringing together whatever cash I could to support the local actors, local productions, and then I try to be in as many plays as I could as well. And it's very different. Yeah, the live stuff and the recorded stuff is very different. Just like this is a live show. This is almost more like a play than a movie because it's live. Whatever we say is gonna be kept in. It's there. It's there for the world to see. But that's the thing I loved, especially when I did that big musical, because it's a 10-night show. Every single show, you get to see what the audience is experiencing, and you get to react off of that, and you kind of expect that in that certain part, and so it brings a little bit extra because that line is now attached to that emotion that one audience gave you, and so you could bring that and kind of just milk that a little further, so that you have that communication with the audience. And then everybody knows that acting on stage is it's a bigger movement. You have to it's more of your body because you're performing for a big audience, and then it's more external is what they say. And then when you're doing film, like we always say, that it's more internal, and you actually are feeling these emotions, and everything is kind of more subtle. However, like when you're acting as an actor, you're actually feeling these emotions, and you don't have to do anything extra of extra huge movements and stuff, unless that's what they ask for. But really, what you're trying to do is just express your story in your own way of how you interpret the script, and it's a lot more in your reading through your eyes. So yeah, it's theater.
Indeed. Absolutely. It's kind of like stand up, you got to have that automatic feedback, and it's a pretty good feeling.
That is true. Yeah, I do need more experience in stand up. I did take that class, and I've done a few open mics. I've done some at Creative Veins, and I've done some. That's where I met you at the Rain Dogs.
Yep.
That's a lot of fun. I know I cracked up the first time I saw you on that stage, and your whole set. Oh, just had me split my sides open.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much. Always trying to get better and try to get like a reaction from everyone. It's like my goal. So, is there any other shout outs you'd like to give a shout out to before we go off air?
I don't know about like shout outs. I would like to just mention that I'm going into my second year of filmmaking, and my first year I've just been trying to see what all is out there and try to help everyone that has helped me in the past, especially from the 48-hour film project 2019, help them however I can. And now I'm making a shift where instead of trying to see what's out there and help them and get onto those projects, right now I am making a branding shift and also a just internal shift where I've been seeing these stories locally and these voices these people basically without voices. And so I've been making a shift where I'm trying to do more nonfiction documentary stuff, but also bringing voices to the voiceless, as in minority groups, different heritage groups, focusing a lot on the heritage months. Like there are, this month is LGBTQ, and Pride Month. Last month was Asian American Pacific Islander American month, and Jewish American month, and then we have Black History or Black Heritage Month. Um, there's almost every month has a different minority that we should be highlighting, and so I'm trying to shift my focus on giving a voice to those minorities, those people that don't always have a platform, and kind of like what you're doing with this show is you're giving local filmmakers a voice and you're letting them be heard. That's kind of what I'm trying to do, and the shift that I'm making now. Just like I said, I was writing that documentary for Asian Americans. Now I am trying to find and build platforms however I can to give voices to those people who are not being heard and not being represented in big media. So I just wanted to give that. This episode has showed a lot of my story, but I just want to share that I'm trying to, with my voice and my platform and everything I've done in this last year, I'm trying to build a platform now to lift other voices up.
Indeed. It's awesome of you, Joe, and we're quite thankful for you and the scene and doing that for everyone from the film side to the heritage side, and it's awesome of you. And as I mentioned earlier, we're raising funds for Joe's film career, so his information is on the bottom, and you can follow him on all the social medias as well, like and Cash App and all that good stuff. So you can help fund his dream as a filmmaker. And you got some special guests back there.
It's okay.
And then we're also raising funds for the Crow Zone in St. Augustine and the Sunray in Jacksonville, because those are our favorite theaters in Florida, in North Florida. So go to their website, buy all their movies, and help keep them afloat during the coronavirus and the COVID-19. And thank you again, Joe, for taking time out of your day and joining me on Saturday Night Cenobites. It truly means a lot. And
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, and let's keep on building each other up. And I look forward to seeing you at the Jack's film bars and everything, and all that good stuff, and in the events after all this Corona stuff is over. Looking forward to seeing you in Jacksonville.
Great, thanks, man.
You're welcome, Joe. And until next time, we'll see you on next week's Saturday Night Cenobite, and we'll see you all soon. Take care, Joe.
Thanks, you too.
Awesome. Oh, sweet. I forgot to tell you. Alexander Tyler says hi, and Alexander Vincent said this is epic, dude. So forgot to check out our comments, and it was like at 10:01. So cool, dude. All right, see you guys next week. Awesome.